In 2024, the Oakland A's averaged 11,528 fans per game, dead last in MLB, not close to last, historically last. And yet, owner John Fisher walked away with a $2 billion franchise valuation and $380 million in taxpayer money backing his brand new Las Vegas stadium. So here's the question that actually matters. How does a team that can't fill seats convince a state to write a $380 million check? The answer isn't mismanagement, it's a strategy. Let's find out how this actually works. To understand the Vegas deal, you need to understand what happened in Oakland first. Because Oakland wasn't just a failed stadium negotiation, it was the pitch deck. The A's had been trying to get a new stadium in Oakland for over a decade. There were serious proposals, real sites, and at one point the city offered $375 million in infrastructure support for a Howard Terminal waterfront project. That's not nothing, but the deals kept falling apart. Permits stalled, environmental reviews dragged, opposition from port operators created legal headaches, and through all of it, Fisher sat on his hands. Now here's where it gets interesting. While those negotiations were grinding along, the A's were running one of the lowest payrolls in baseball, somewhere in the $60 to $80 million range in the years leading up to the move. The rest of MLB was spending 2, 3, sometimes 4 times that. The A's, meanwhile, were collecting roughly $70 million a year from MLB's revenue sharing pool, a program designed to help small market teams compete by redistributing money from wealthier franchises. So they were pulling in $70 million in shared revenue and spending $60 to $80 million on players. You don't need a finance degree to see where that math goes. Forbes estimated the A's were generating around $29 million in annual operating profit during this period. The team told the San Francisco Chronicle they were losing $9 million. That $38 million gap between what the team reported and what Forbes calculated is worth sitting with for a second, because that credibility gap matters when you're about to ask a state legislature for public money. And then there's the attendance. By 2024, the A's were drawing 11,528 fans per game. To put that in context, that's roughly the size of a high school gym spread across a 46,000-seat stadium. Opponents started calling it a reverse boycott, fans staying away on purpose to accelerate the move. Whether that's true or not, the result was the same. Fisher had his proof. Look at these numbers. He could tell Las Vegas, look at this empty stadium. This market is dead. Oakland doesn't want baseball. We need a new home. That framing the dying market narrative is exactly what gets a subsidy request taken seriously. It's not unique to baseball. You see it in real estate, in manufacturing, in tech. When a business can point to market failure, government attention follows. The trick is that the failure often isn't accidental. We'll come back to that. But first, let's look at what that pitch actually got Fisher in Nevada. In June 2023, Nevada Governor Joe Lombardo called a special legislative session. The bill on the table was Senate Bill 1, SB 1, and it authorized up to $380 million in public funding for a new A's ballpark on the Las Vegas Strip, on the former Tropicana site. The session lasted 2 days. The bill passed, limited public debate, no voter referendum, just a fast-tracked approval that committed hundreds of millions in public resources to a private sports franchise. So where does $380 million actually come from? It's not one check, it's 3 layers, and each one works differently. The first layer is $180 million in transferable state tax credits. Here's why transferable matters. The A's don't have to wait years to use those credits against future tax bills. They can sell them immediately to other businesses for cash. That means the moment the credits are issued, the team can convert them into liquid capital. It's essentially a $180 million cash injection dressed up as a tax benefit. The second layer is $120 to $125 million in Clark County bonds. These are repaid through something called tax increment financing, or TIF. Here's how TIF works. The county carves out a special tax district around the stadium. Any new sales tax, payroll tax, or other tax revenue generated inside that district gets captured and used to repay the bonds, instead of going into the general fund the way it normally would. Proponents say it's clean because it uses new revenue, not existing taxpayer dollars. But here's the catch. If attendance underperforms and that tax district doesn't generate enough revenue, the taxpayer backstop kicks in. The county is still on the hook for the bonds, so the risk isn't eliminated. It's just hidden inside the fine print. The third layer is a $25 million county infrastructure credit covering vehicular and pedestrian access to the site. Smaller number, but it matters because it means the A's aren't paying for the roads and walkways that make their stadium accessible. The public is. Added up and the scorecard looks like this. The A's franchise was valued at $2 billion in a 2025 share sale. Public funding totals $380 million. That's 19 cents of every dollar of team equity, effectively backed by taxpayers. The team's private contribution from Fisher's family, a $300 million construction loan from Goldman Sachs and U.S. Bank, and a $175 million equity stake from food and beverage partner Aramark covers the rest of the $2 billion build. But notice what that structure does. Fisher minimizes his personal cash exposure while capturing 100% of the upside if the franchise value grows. Now run the operating math. The A's projected 2025 payroll is around $100 payout to $105 million, the minimum threshold required under the MLB collective bargaining agreement to stay compliant with the Players Association. Their estimated annual revenue based on Forbes historical data and MLB revenue sharing eligibility lands somewhere between $200 and $250 million. That $70 million revenue sharing intake alone nearly covers the entire payroll. The potential surplus before a single Vegas ticket is sold runs somewhere between $100 and $150 million. And there's a wrinkle making Nevada's bond math even shakier. The A's are currently negotiating a non-relocation agreement that would allow them to play up to 8 home games per year outside Las Vegas at neutral sites for branding purposes. That's double the MLB norm of 3 to 4. Every game pulled out of Vegas cuts the tax district's revenue. Analysts have estimated that arrangement could reduce annual tax capture by $2.6 to $3 million. That doesn't sound catastrophic until you realize the entire bond repayment model was sold to Nevada based on 81 home games per year, generating consistent local economic activity. Move 8 of those games, and you're quietly pulling the foundation out from under the math Nevada used to justify the deal. The stadium hasn't opened yet, but the money is already moving, and not necessarily in the direction Nevada's legislators thought it would. Step back from the baseball for a second. What Fisher actually pulled off here isn't a sports story. It's a leveraged expansion using public capital, and the playbook is older than the A's franchise. Look at the pattern. Miami's Marlins Park opened in 2012, financed by over $400 million in county revenue bonds. Owner Jeffrey Loria's private contribution was minimal. He extracted franchise value, sold the team in 2017 for $1.2 billion, and left Miami taxpayers holding a debt that will take decades to repay. Then Las Vegas Raiders got $740 million in public funding for Allegiant Stadium. Now the A's get $380 million. The subsidy floor keeps rising. The median public contribution for a new U.S. sports venue hit $500 million in 2024, up from $350 million in 2010. Each deal normalizes the next one. The core mechanic Fisher used is actually straightforward. Once you see it, minimize private capital exposure, maximize public leverage, then capture 100% of the upside through valuation gains. The 2025 share sale confirms it worked. The team is worth $2 billion, and a meaningful chunk of that value was built on a taxpayer-subsidized asset. Here's what makes this transferable beyond sports. The same logic applies in real estate development, franchise expansion, and even startup growth. Government incentive programs, TF districts, transferable tax credits, enterprise zones, opportunity zones exist in almost every industry. The businesses that grow fastest aren't always the ones taking the biggest risks. They're the ones identifying where public money absorbs the fixed costs, while private equity keeps the revenue upside. Fisher didn't invent this, he just ran it more visibly than most. The stadium might be empty for years. The balance sheet won't be. That's the real trick. Not tricking Las Vegas, but using a playbook cities keep falling for. Fisher minimized his exposure and let public money do the heavy lifting. That's the lesson. Subscribe to Revenue Racers for more breakdowns on how money actually moves in sports business.